Hey guys, Dr. Axe here, founder of draxe.com and Doctor of Functional Medicine. Today I'm going to share with you how to win the battle for your immune system and really create a strong immune system and boost your immune system naturally. And one of the biggest keys in doing so is getting more probiotics in your diet and improving your digestive health. In fact, there's new research showing that a condition called leaky gut is a major cause of food sensitivities, autoimmune disease, and immune imbalance or a weakened immune system in the body. And again, the key is really increasing probiotics. There's really two main steps here. Number one, you've got to be careful of things that kill off probiotics. Stay away from tap water that contains fluoride and chlorine. Be careful of taking prescription antibiotic medications. That's the leading cause of probiotics getting wiped out today. And then also be careful in not consuming too much sugar. Consuming too much sugar can cause bad bacteria to feed, and which actually imbalances the good and bad bacteria in your body. And basically what probiotics are, this is step two, you need to start consuming more probiotics. Probiotics are good bacteria that help you digest nutrients, that help detoxify your colon, and that help balance out and support your immune system within your body. And so the next step is consuming more probiotic foods and taking a quality probiotic supplement. The probiotic foods you should look to consume are things like sauerkraut and kimchi, so fermented vegetables, also fermented dairy products like kefir and goat's milk yogurt, also probiotic beverages like apple cider vinegar, coconut kefir, and kvass. Getting some of those probiotic foods will absolutely help your immune system, and then taking a quality probiotic supplement that contains live or living probiotics. Getting a better brand will help you with those. So again, if you want to take your immune system to the next level, start staying away from the things that kill probiotics. Load up your diet with probiotics. If you do so, you're going to take your immune system and function to the next level.
How do we strengthen and bulletproof our immune system? That is the topic for today. First thing is, what is your immune system? It's basically your defenses, it's your army, it's your military to fight off the bad guys, the pathogens. Pathogens are microbes that cause disease. The derivation of the word immune comes from the Latin word immunis, which means exempt from public service. Now that's interesting. Now if you break down this concept, it really means protected or free against insult, harm, or disease. So basically, your immune system protects you against disease. So the immune system is like immigration. So if something foreign enters the body, it has to go through the airways, it has to go maybe through the digestive system, and has to get the stamp of approval from immigration. And that's what your immune system does. It's constantly scanning to see if you are a foreign entity that could cause harm, or if you're part of the body. And once it tags you as a foreign thing that could threaten the body, it will automatically send in the defenses. And that's what we're going to cover next. There are three main barriers for the immune system. You have the skin. So you have all these friendly bacteria on your skin that actually help protect you against foreign invaders. You also have a fat layer that protects you, and you have certain acids that protect you on the skin. Then you have the mucus lining in your gut, through the airways, through the sinuses, that also capture and engulf foreign particles or microbes. Inflammation is another barrier that your body puts up to protect itself. The main cells in your immune system are the white blood cells, compared to the red blood cells that have a different function. You also have, in addition to white blood cells, you have friendly bacteria that help you as well. And the name of the friendly bacteria collectively is called the microbiome or flora. And those microbes help you in many ways, from absorption of nutrients to recycling of bile to immune defenses. Just one of the things they do as a strategy is they'll make it so there's just not enough space for a pathogen to live, and they will make it so there's not enough food for that pathogen to live. So let's talk about the defenses of your immune system, the white blood cells. It makes acid to dissolve and kill microbes and pathogens. It will secrete poison to kill off these microbes. It releases free radicals. It will make hydrogen peroxide. You've probably seen that before where you take hydrogen peroxide and you put it on an open cut. It just dissolves. It bubbles up and just kills off the microbes through oxidation. Our white blood cells actually make enzymes to help break down and dissolve microbes. Now, I already mentioned this one. Our microbes compete for food or space, but the white blood cells generate mucus and inflammation. And so these pathogens get caught up in this mucus web and they can't really do anything else. It's like quicksand. Also, our immune system has a memory, everything that's happening. So everything's in a database and it can remember, like, so way down the road when there's a microbe that actually comes back in our body and our immune system actually tags it because it has a memory of that and it can destroy it. So it actually learns over time by being exposed to these pathogens. That's called building up your immune system. And this is why, as a child, it's not very healthy to keep a child just so utterly sterile that they're never exposed or they're never sick. It's a natural part of building the immune system. Then we get to something called the phagocyte. That's part of our immune system. The phagocytes are cells that eat things. They devour microbes. And they have a ravenous appetite for not just microbes and viruses and bacteria and yeast and fungus, but they will also eat up dead cells and debris. They are the garbage disposal for things that we don't want in our body. Just 1 liter of blood has 6 billion of these guys. Now, an interesting thing about phagocytes is that they're stimulated by acid. And I think this is why, this is just my guess, why when people take a lot of synthetic vitamin C, ascorbic acid, certain people get results, even with synthetic vitamin C, simply because of the acid. I would recommend just consuming apple cider vinegar. Apple cider vinegar has been known to acidify the body and speed up phagocytosis, just like any acid. So if you have a choice, I would recommend the food-based vitamin C, not the synthetic, but use apple cider vinegar to actually speed up phagocytosis. And another mechanism that I want to mention that I didn't write down and involves certain white blood cells. If certain white blood cells are infected by a pathogen, we have this built-in mechanism that if the cell is invaded, it goes through something called apoptosis, where it kills itself off for the benefit of the entire body, because if they let the microbes leach into their DNA and start reproducing, then they become the copy machine that just makes the virus over and over and over. Now, on the flip side, the bad guys, the pathogens, also have their defenses as well. They have the ability to block vitamin D, and they do it through the vitamin D receptor, because somehow they know that vitamin D is so essential for the control of your immune system that if they can block it, they lower the resistance to invading the cells so they can take it over. The other thing that these sneaky little pathogens do is they can mimic your body tissue so you're not recognized by the immune system. They're very sneaky that way. They can also hide in calcium little igloos, little houses. And this is why antibiotics are not effective against something called biofilm. And that's a whole different topic. I put a video down below for more information about that. But these microbes have gotten very, very smart. Another mechanism, especially with microbes like the mycoplasma that doesn't have a cell wall, they keep moving. They'll move into one joint in the synovial fluid, in another joint, and then your immune system is trying to attack them and they miss, and so they keep moving so you can't get them. Another mechanism is these microbes have the ability to morph into different structures, so your immune system gets confused. Okay, so now let's talk about what to do about it. There's two things. You have things that weaken the immune system, and you have things that strengthen the immune system. Now, as far as what weakens the immune system, low nutrient foods. Going on a diet that creates nutritional deficiencies. If you take the pandemic, the Spanish flu that occurred in 1918, and you take a look at what happened just before this pandemic, this spread of this virus all over the world that killed 50 to 100 million people. What occurred right before that is World War I. Now, what happened in this war is you had this huge shift of transportation of food. You had rationing. You had the preserving of food. A lot of the soldiers were given things like canned corned beef. Some foods had dog food. There just wasn't a lot of fresh vegetables and food. So when you do that over a period of time, you weaken the immune system, especially if you put someone under a stressful state, like being in a war. That is going to set the person up for a susceptibility to having a virus invading their body. So when you're low in vitamins, trace minerals, amino acids, and fatty acids especially, you are more susceptible to getting sick because of the fact that the nutrient defense mechanism is dependent on these nutrients. Just think about a virus, for example. A virus can't do anything to you. It's not alive unless it invades the cell wall and goes right into your DNA and starts to turn that thing into a copy machine while it hijacks the life force from that cell. Now think about what I just said. It has to invade the cell wall, okay? That cell wall is two layers of fat. It's a bilipid layer of fat, okay? So this is another reason why essential fatty acids are vital to protect your cells. You don't want to go on a low-fat diet when you're run down or sick. So fat and cholesterol, by the way, is very important in a healthy immune system. Cholesterol is an essential building block for certain hormones like cortisol, for example. Cortisol is really important in your immune system. So if cortisol does not have its building blocks, cholesterol, it can't be formed correctly. And then you have stress. This is probably equivalent to nutrient deficiencies. In fact, in practice, I don't remember one case that came in that had some sickness that didn't have some stress event occur right before it. So stress is a very key factor, and I put some links down below for more information on how someone can extract stress. Low sleep also sets you up for being susceptible, and it's connected to stress as well. And glucose. I just released a video on this one point. Certain viruses are activated more with glucose fuel versus other fuels. So you know about healthy keto and intermittent fasting. For those of you that are new and you don't know anything about it, check it out. I put a link down below of the exact diet that you need to be on to have a very strong immune system. But now let's talk about what nutrients are really vital in keeping your immune system bulletproof. At the top of the list, we have vitamin C. And I'm not talking about synthetic vitamin C. I'm talking about a vitamin C from food or a food concentrate. Now in nature, vitamin C always comes in a complex of many parts, not just one thing, ascorbic acid. But the foods that are highest in vitamin C are sauerkraut, bell peppers, berries, green leafy vegetables. Vitamin C has the power to stimulate the production of more white blood cells. Vitamin C is also stored in large quantities in your adrenal gland to actually help make adrenal hormones. Now, next one that's equally as important, vitamin D. I talked about that in the slide right before this. Vitamin D is an immune modulator. It's not really even a vitamin. It's a hormone factor that actually controls your immune system. So it has a function that goes way beyond just making bone. There's vitamin D receptors in all of your white blood cell and in your DNA. And when I mean modulate the immune system, I mean has a controlling factor over your immune system. And many people are deficient in vitamin D and they don't even know it. But it supports the T cells, okay, which are made by the thymus gland, which is like a training camp for white blood cells. It also protects against pathogens. And it actually makes these two different things that have the capacity to kill microbes very potently. So vitamin D does a lot of different things for your immune system. Next one on the list that's very important is vitamin A, okay? Vitamin A provides the structural integrity of the mucosal cells in the sinus and the respiratory centers. The best source of vitamin A is cod liver oil, egg yolks, butter is a good one because it's a fat-soluble vitamin. And by the way, vitamin D is very hard to get from food, so the sun would be probably the best source or as a supplement. Zinc is the most important trace mineral for the immune system. It actually can increase T cells And it does a lot of other things for the immune system, but a lot of people are deficient in zinc. But zinc is very protective against viruses. Garlic is hands down, ranks #1 in potency for killing off viruses, bacteria, yeast, fungus, mold. It is very, very potent. Next one is colloidal silver, which is basically silver particles in water. It's been around for a long time. It starves off the oxygen supply to certain microbes, so it's very potent. Some people use it as a nasal rinse, and it works really good. But this is a very potent antiviral as well. And then olive leaf. Olive leaf has been studied extensively. I put some links down below for more information on that, but this is great as an antiviral and to actually protect the immune system. There's a lot of other things that can protect the immune system, but from my viewpoint, these are the most powerful. Hey guys, well, thanks for watching. I know I gave you a lot to take in.
Today, okay, now we're going to talk about brain function next week, but we have to talk about immune systems. Now, and I'm getting questions continually and just the most bizarre stuff in the world. But because people don't know the basics about anatomy, physiology. Now, germ theory. Do germs cause disease? Well, yeah, because you're walking around with a mask. You got to be careful. Everyone's got a disease. Okay, so we got to run away. Now, how many people are alive? Go on, raise your hand. Holy shit, a dead person just raised their hand. No. Okay, so now for you to be alive in 2020, you've had parents and grandparents and great-grandparents and great-great-great-grandparents and going back millennia. Okay, so you are the end result of this genetic information, this intelligence. Because if you came from Northern Europe, then your relatives probably survived the Black Plague. Okay, you survived different areas of this planet, your history. And so you were actually designed to live on this planet. Now, that's something that people don't think about. Now, we have two brilliant guys here, Louis Pasteur and Antoine Beauchamp. And I encourage you, because this is going to be breaking belief systems. Like if you think germs cause disease, because I've actually had doctors say, oh, you don't even believe in the germ theory. And I said, no, I actually do. I know that the immune system, the resistance of the host, is essential in this. That germs do not cause diseases in healthy individuals. And I encourage you to look at this, but also I want you to look at Dissolving Illusions, book by Susan Humphreys. We got it in our library, if it's still there, but we keep on loaning out books because we have you want to borrow it? It's yours. Now, also, The Dream and Lie of Louis Pasteur. That's a heck of a book, but it's going to start to break belief systems. Now, I put this slide up a few weeks ago. Academy of Ideas. They've got some brilliant stuff in there. But just hold to see if this is true today. Mob mentality and groupthink. Does the average person possess the character traits to stand up to the challenges of life? Or does the typical person have the look of the hunted, possessing the characteristics of sheep? And can most people reduce to the state of utter panic and fear, since a collective disease of the mind has spread across most of the world? The only choice we have for those who want to maintain our mental health is to learn what facilitates human flourishing and to build our lives around such foundations. While societal changes are throughout history, what we are as humans remains relatively constant. Think of this. What facilitates human flourishing? Not fear, not anxiety, not stress. What caused you to have social interaction, have connection, have healthy nutrients, have good exercise, looking at your physical, chemical, and emotional? What societies are thriving on this planet and have thrived? And I got to tell you, we've had a couple of our patients, okay, and these guys have lived in Mexico for over 40 years with a culture that predates the Mayan. Now, these guys for 6,000 years lived in harmony with no military and no property, okay, and no money. They did it for service, to serve each other. Now, you might think that's too Pollyanna, there's no way it could work. It worked for 6,000 years. And obviously, since we're seeing, literally our world being destroyed in the last 100 years, a couple of different times. And you could call this the Third World War. Now, this was a great article at A Vaccine Impact, but this happened yesterday, August 2nd. Now, you're looking at thousands of people. They say up to 20,000 people were there in Germany protesting. Now I looked up, there's a couple of German signs there that are saying, give us our freedom, give us our air, stop forcing us to wear masks. Okay, and because well, knowing that there has been and this is what the article says, because I disagree when they say it's 100% cure. Do you know what the cure for the common cold is? You do. It's the common cold. So the cure for this stuff is for you to get exposed, go through the process of developing the mucous membranes that are swollen, of developing the cellular and humoral response, of actually going through coughing, sneezing. Like this afternoon, we were picking up, this gal threw up in one of the rooms. And so, that is an immune system response. It's helping you alkalinize, it's getting you out of stress. Okay, so all these things are normal body functions. Okay, this is how the body actually works. So when they say cure, strengthening the immune system, there's 100% of things that you can do, that a plethora of things that you can do to strengthen your immune system. Vitamin D, vitamin C, direct sunlight, exercise, reducing your physical, chemical, emotional stress. There's a ton of stuff. Now, calling those cures, I doubt it. Okay, but calling those healthy adaptations to strengthen the system that you have, that would make sense. And a common chant in this group was masks makes us slaves. And hydrochloroquine scandal spurs hundreds of thousands to protest in Europe, while Americans mostly just comply. It's true. That's true. And so I've had to. I mean, there are even some stores that aren't utilizing or honoring our mask exemption, because there is no data that shows that a healthy person wearing a mask can protect others. Now, those masks limit oxygen. They put you under stress. And this is an experiment that I don't want to be involved in, but I've had to acquiesce and build my own mask. So I did. I have a hunk of stainless steel chainmail. Okay, now it works really well, actually a little bit better than the paper masks, because it doesn't restrict my breathing. There's no moisture that's going to build up here. And talk about protection. I'll stand side by side with anybody. You shoot that paper mask wearing person in the mouth with an arrow, you shoot me in the mask with an arrow, you might chip a tooth, but it ain't going through this. Okay. Now, if you want to get one of these beauties, okay, granted, I spent some big bucks. It's a pot scrubber. It's a stainless steel pot scrubber for cast iron. And then I have it hung with a hunk of that's sticky stuff that we use around twisted ankles and stuff that all chiropractors have. So, I might just wear it because it looks good. But yeah, this is insane. Okay, so let's look at the actual facts on this, and then we'll go into immune system. Now, crisis, I know what you've been told. Now, this slide is a couple of days old, because what are they doing every day? Cases have gone up. Yeah, no kidding. You're testing 500,000 people a day. We should have more cases. Duh. Okay, but it's always this panic. So now this one had roughly 137,000 people that had died in our country of 331 million. And roughly that's 0.04% of the population has died. Now, granted, the numbers are completely horribly inflated, because they're not saying that this person got COVID and actually from that infection died of that infection. And if anybody actually knows somebody without any comorbid conditions of a healthy person getting this virus and dying, you can make $5,000 right now, today, by calling up and submitting that data to Dr. Tim O'Shea, Northern California. and he'll give you $5,000 because he hasn't seen anyone that has had no comorbid conditions that has died with actual laboratory evidence that they have died from this. So the numbers are a bit off. Okay. Now let's look at long-term care facilities. We know that, New York and New Jersey tried to do their best to take sick people and put them in the long care facilities. Okay, even though that people over 70 are just about the only ones at risk. And you'll see the data to back that up, but it's about 0.11% of the population of America dies in these long-term facilities every year. So that's 380,000 people. Guess how many people are going to die next year? About 380,000. The year after, probably a little bit more, but it'll be in the ballpark. And so this is every year. Now, when we look at the death statistics, if you have a country of 331 million, you're going to have an average around 7,700 people dying every day. But if you hear this on the news, cases running up, you might be a little afraid, so you grab your mask and you walk around looking like this. Okay. But if you ask the right questions and look at this, because honestly, the quality of your life depends on the quality of questions you ask. And if you're not asking these questions, you're not going to have a quality of life. You're going to be in shelter in place. You're going to be in lockdown. You're not going to get your hair cut. You're not going to be socializing with friends during, Eid Mubarak, my brothers. Okay, you're not going to be socializing. You're not going to be going to church. You're not going to be going to synagogue. You're not going to be going to these places which are vital for your immune system. Then you look at excess deaths. Okay, so currently, or when I did this, it was like 2 days ago. It was day 213. I think it might be yesterday. And so normally in America, by day 213, there should be about 1,600,000 deaths in America. And that is normal. Nobody shuts anything down. That happens every year. So excess deaths, and that has to do with like the 2017-18 flu season, which was really bad, but 60,000 extra people died. But so excess deaths range between 4 and 11% if there's an increase in damage, disease, stress, or whatever. And I got to tell you, if I just said, be careful, Martians are landing tomorrow, the hospitals would start to fill up with people in stress. Okay, so it has to do with your perception, not what's actually happening to you. So statistically, there's 2.5 times or 2.75 times the amount of deaths happening in nursing facilities than in COVID. Now, you've heard this part, okay? You got to stay apart from each other because this person can infect 2.3 people. I put 3 people up here because that's just the graphic. Okay, but only 2.3 people. Now, those 2.3 can infect another 2.3. Those can infect another 3 and another 3. So we go from 3 to 6 to, or 3 to 9 to 27 to, exponential. Eventually the world is covered. Okay, now this is completely not based in science. It's somebody playing with math. It goes on the assumption. Wait, how do you spell assumption? ASS out of you and me? Okay, good. It goes on the assume, okay, that 100% susceptibility. Now, when we know, because we do have data, that not everyone is susceptible. Not everyone is going to get sick. So that's a false. Anyone that has said this is lying to you. This means Fauci, this means all of those bullshit experts are lying to you because this can't happen. It never has happened. It never will happen. And you could talk about hoof and mouth disease. You could talk about Ebola. It doesn't affect 100% of the people the same way. Okay, I know. Say it with me. Duh. Tell us something we don't know. Come on. Okay, so let's ask some questions because the quality of your life depends on the quality of questions. How long is the infection? Wait, no one asked me that. It's just that this person's going to infect 3. Those 3 will infect 3 more. That's 9. Then it goes into greater. Okay, no, we just want to panic. No one's asking these questions. And then when you have the talking heads on the news that are just feeding into it, it's ridiculous. So how long is the infection? What are the outcomes of the infection? Do you have a 99% recovery rate? It's actually 99.8% recovery rate of this. Okay, so you have it. You have a 99% chance of recovering. Get her some water. Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous to think that this is a danger, but how many people are dead? How many people recover? How many people are maimed? Do they have smallpox scars? What's the actual sequelae of the disease? Okay, so we have to ask those questions. Oh my gosh, we've got a petri dish that we can look at. It's called the Diamond Princess. We have an elderly group that happened back in February. And the reason I'm bringing this back up is because people forgot. It's insane. What did you have for dinner last week? You might not remember. Okay, but this, happened a few months ago. We got an enclosed group. They're breathing the same air. They're hanging out in the same places. They're intermingling. No mask, no social distancing. They didn't know any of this stuff. And you got an elderly population, 3,700 people on this boat. And so now you know who's going to be infected, what's the sequelae of it, how long does it last, who's dangerous. Okay, so 3,700 people. Now they tested, and granted the tests are completely not accurate, okay? They're going to test if you got the presence of it, not if you're actually sick. And even that, the tests aren't accurate to diagnose down to the COVID-19. They're just looking at a little piece of the virus, so it could be any type of corona type virus, and they're only 80% false positive. Wait, did you get that? Okay, good, just checking. Okay, so 3,700 people, they had 712 people that had been infected, so they must have had some symptoms. So about 20% of the boat was infected. Now, does that mean they all died? No, let's look at it. So when we look at the statistics, on that 3,700 people, 7 people died. But let's look at it. Now, between 70 and 79, there were 1,000 people, 1,015 people. So between the age group of 70 and 79, 6 of that 1,000 died. Now, did they have comorbid conditions? Yes, 100% had comorbid conditions. They had either heart disease, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, chronic respiratory diseases, high blood pressure, or cancers. So they weren't healthy people, but 6 out of 1,000 who were not healthy 70 to 79-year-olds died. Now we have the 80 to 89-year-olds. There were 216 of them. One person in that group died. Nobody under 70 died. Nobody. 0% of the group. So now, if we look at this, the World Health Organization says it's 5 times deadlier than the flu. Really? To who? It's not deadly at all, according to this petri dish that we had to look at all the evidence if you're under 70 with no comorbid conditions. So let's look at the worldometers. They do this, they found out the same data, okay, that if you were under 70, okay, and you had no comorbid conditions, you were going to be okay. So where did they come with shutting down the schools? Because they just didn't know. They didn't know. Where is the justification for shutting down our schools and churches and sporting events and everything else now? They just don't want to. There's enough data out there, okay? Now, herd immunity. This is something that you're going to see Sweden vilified, but this is how your immune system works. You're designed to be exposed to viruses. And this is actually a brilliant article on Conservative Review. COVID-19 herd immunity without vaccination. Now, let's look at herd immunity, because what you may have heard, no, different herd, it's H-E-A-R-D. There's a couple of English majors here. Don't want to freak them out. Okay, although the term herd immunity, not herd, was first coined in 1923, it only became in broad use, stimulated by the increased vaccination over the past 5 decades. Contrary to the vaccine program of eradicating disease, herd immunity includes a mathematical underpinning, a 1927 theorem applied by the vaccine modelers, was originally conceptualized to address this equation. Now listen to this. Herd immunity, 1927. The resistance of any herd at any given moment will determine the frequency or distribution within its individuals of varying orders of susceptibility. Wow, 1927. So it wasn't the disease that was causing this. it turns out that you are all individuals. Holy shit, I thought you were just a herd of humans. I thought you guys would respond exactly the same to every therapy, every vaccine, every medication. Okay, and that's why we can do all this crazy stuff. But no, it turns out that you're individuals. Wow, interesting. Now, the modelers whose seminal paper limited to the cases in which all members of a community are initially equally susceptible to the disease, an assumption that's still used by vaccine-driven eradication or near eradication models. Is that currently used today? Absolutely, because they're not looking to strengthen your immune system. When have you ever heard anyone saying exercise is good? No, close the gyms. Okay, direct sunlight will help you get vitamin D. No, close the beaches. Okay, our social interaction, our connection. You should have vitamin D, vitamin C, zinc, healthy foods. No, none of that. None of that. Social isolation, and the fast food joints are still open, so you're going to be okay. This immunity may be acquired latently without illness, and if not always enough to prevent symptoms of infection, may be such that the severity and fatality are decreased. Absolutely, you're going to see evidence of this, that your body has been exposed to a number of different viruses over the millennia, and your relatives have been exposed to this, and this is all protecting you. Now, this is interesting. Okay, again, the immunity. Natural acquired immunity to SARS-CoV-2 may place populations over the herd immunity threshold with as few as 10 to 20%. That makes sense. Do we have data on that? Let me see that Diamond Princess. They had 19-point-something% of the population that came down sick, and the rest of them were okay, but they were all exposed. That makes sense. I got data to support that. That makes sense. Now, what's interesting, the presence of cross-reactive non-COVID human coronavirus antibodies induced by coronavirus is responsible for 15 to 30% of all seasonal common colds, which might lessen the COVID-19 disease severity. In English, up to 30% of all the colds in America, colds, not devastating cancerous-like illnesses, colds. You're sick for a couple of weeks, you get the chicken soup, okay, unless you're a vegetarian, okay, then you get the garlic and onion soup, okay, which is like friggin' amazing. And you rest up, you sweat, you take vitamin C, and you're recovered. Okay, this is how colds work. It shows that if you've had, so this is about 1 in 3 people that get a cold are going to get this response, that you're going to have an immune system response that will show that you have an immune system T cells to the COVID because it's similar. It's similar. The presence of such T cells detected in about 40 to 60% of SARS-CoV unexposed healthy U.S. blood donors suggest a cross-reactivity of T cell immunity circulating the common cold virus. So people, 40 to 60% of the blood donors in America are showing antibody production. Evidence that 6 of 8 close household contact members of COVID infected recovered patients who also developed mild symptoms but did not produce SARS-CoV antibodies, yet demonstrated T cell immunity by SARS-CoV-2. The investigators concluded epidemiologic data relying on the detection of SARS-CoV antibodies may lead to substantial underestimation of the prior exposure to the virus. So if you're looking at T cells, you're going to find a small portion. If you're looking at antibodies, you're going to have a small portion. But if you're just relying on one of those tests, you're going to miss it. Plus, the other data on the antibodies, it's only there for a short time. So you may have been exposed in the past, developed an immune system response, and that's how the immune system works. Another one, Center for Evidence-Based Medicine. If you're under 9, you have a 100% chance of recovering and not getting this as long as you don't have a comorbid condition. In fact, if you're under 60, you have a 96% chance of never dying with this. And that's even if you start to have comorbid conditions. I mean, it's mind-blowing. Now, I love this one. Imagine if you're trying to rush a vaccine to market. Now, granted, those piddly little safety studies, why even do them? Because you don't have any liability. And the market is there. What did I say? The quality of your life depends on the quality of questions you ask? Okay, this was a good article. And they talk about Dr. Anthony Fauci and Dr. Francis Collins, interviewed by the Wall Street Journal. Here they go. It would not be particularly encouraging if we have a vaccine that's capable of protecting 20-year-olds who probably have a pretty low risk anyway of getting sick and doesn't work well at all for people over 65. What references is he doing for that? The flu shot. It doesn't work well at all over 65. So what do? They just double the dosage, no test or anything else, and they shoot people with it. So we're seeing a rise in dementia and autoimmune conditions, but still no changes in the flu. Oxford University vaccine researcher Regis Sir John Bell recently laminated that as COVID-19 cases rapidly dwindle, they're going down. You wouldn't start trials in London now for sure. Bell added that scientists might have to chase the virus around the nation for vaccine trials to be successful. Gee, there's not enough infection here to check if the vaccine works. So, mind-blowing. Okay, and vaccine enthusiast Fauci and more sober Bell each conveniently ignored the unsuccessful vaccine experiences of other coronavirus vaccines over the past 2 decades. Yeah, they haven't been successful for, 17 years. Now, this is a good article. All-cause mortality during COVID-19, no plague, and a likely signature of mass homicide by government response. One of the talks that I got that was taken off was, I'm not afraid of the virus because I know how viruses work. Okay, you got something either really deadly and not that infectious, or you got something really infectious and not that deadly. Okay, based on healthy human beings. So all I can do is take my sick patients and get them as healthy as possible, tell them what they can do to strengthen their immune system, and my healthy patients tell them to get out there and spread health. Talk to people. The latest data of all-cause mortality week by week does not show a winter bird mortality that is statistically larger than the past 4 winters, so there was no plague. So they're looking at stats comparing this year with last year. And with all the hype, wouldn't you expect a massive rise? Because they got refrigerators in front of hospitals, but then they're letting doctors go because they don't have enough work. Then it just doesn't make any sense, because what's going on? Now, he goes in to look at the different charts and things of the infectious rate, the death rate, everything else, and it doesn't line up. COVID peak results from the accelerated mass homicide of the immune vulnerable individuals and individuals made more vulnerable by government and institutional actions rather than being from an epidemiologic signature of a novel virus. He's looking at death statistics, he's looking at charts, and he's saying, and you got to read the whole article because it's just brilliant, that it's an accelerated mass homicide of immune vulnerable individuals. Is this what happened in New York? Why does New York have over 3 times the death rate of Sweden? Okay, and forget the economic disaster that New York is going to be. We already know it's just the streets are violent. It's insane. UN warns that this economic shutdown, the government intervention, will kill hundreds of thousands of children. Are children at risk for this disease? Not healthy kids that we're looking at. They're not. But they are at risk of the government intervention. Hundreds of thousands of them will die. Our kids weren't healthy in the first place before this. In fact, 70% of our 17 to 24-year-olds didn't even qualify for military service. If you have questions when this is on YouTube, check the references. You've got choices. What weakens the immune system? We're talking inappropriate stresses, medications, nutrient deficiencies, sedentary lifestyle, and lack of sleep. Okay, Now, is this what's happening in the senior centers that has the highest death rate? Yes or yes? Okay, that's how you weaken an immune system. Now, if you have intelligent, thinking, caring individuals, not people that have a financial interest in promoting a medical therapy that has no liability, if you have real doctors, they're going to be suggesting healthy stressors. Walking is a healthy stress. Exercising is a healthy stress, particularly if you're in New Jersey. And if you're in New Jersey, go find that bearded guy who had to move his equipment out and get in. I saw him, man. When I meet him, because I'm going to meet him someday, I'm going to so high five him. Guys from New Jersey are pretty tough nuts anyway. Okay, I worked with a couple of them when I was a kid. But man, you get a weightlifter from New Jersey, and then you get a weightlifter with a big old freaking beard like that. Yeah, he's not going to take shit. Okay, get the healthy nutrients, active lifestyle. So what is it? Is germs, do they cause disease? I don't see evidence of that, because that would cause disease universally. Is it the weakened immune system that causes it? Is it the terrain that's important? Or is the disease really a response to an environmental stimulus? We know that scurvy, rickets, beriberi, these were all nutrient deficiencies. Was that from the disease, or was it from a weakened immune system? Smallpox, polio, God, the oral polio vaccine, we discontinued that in this country because it was causing polio. Don't worry about it. Ship it to Africa and India, and it causes paralysis over there. But diphtheria, pertussis, measles before the vaccine, 4 million cases of measles, 400 kids died. And that's, now, if we're looking at a scientific basis, wouldn't you look at those 400 kids and found out what their immune system was like? Could they have been vitamin A deficient? Could they have been vitamin C deficient? Or do we just vaccinate all 4,400,000 next year? Okay. We know that even before, and this is listing polio, measles, pertussis, tetanus, mumps, rubella, diphtheria, chickenpox, hepatitis B, and Hib. Okay, all of those, you had more than a 99.999% chance of living. Okay, so it's crazy. So let's look at this. What is a virus? When you're seeing these beautiful, pretty pictures with little tiny noogies on it, okay, that doesn't exist. That's an artist rendering. We're looking at little viral particles, pieces of it. Now, a virus is a well-organized molecular parasite. It's not a living organism. It has to utilize your RNA or DNA to replicate. This is why one person can only infect 2.3. Okay, according to this. And even that, it can't infect universally. You got to have a weakened immune system. Does that make sense or make sense? So you get one person sneezing and coughing and spitting on everybody, okay? You have to be susceptible. You've got to have some immune system weakening problem, some type of physical, chemical, or emotional stress. 45% of your DNA is viral. If you are afraid of viruses, you are afraid of yourself. You're afraid of your environment. It is an illogical fear. You want to wipe yourself down. You want to clean up everything. You want to make this area as clean as a hospital. Beautiful. You're going to have 300,000 deaths a year from hospital-acquired infections because it's so clean. You have bacteria on your skin. You want to start using Purell that has cancer-causing agents. You're going to develop contact dermatitis. Do you know how many patients come in now and are saying, "Doc, what do? I got to wear this mask. I got contact dermatitis." Take it off. Okay, get direct sunlight on it. But my boss makes me wear it. Okay, get a badass one. Okay. I don't think anyone's going to ask me to take this one off. Gosh. Viruses are responsible for two critically important functions in nature. This is why 45% of your DNA is viral. Variation and adaptation. Viruses are behind much of what is termed evolution. This is why you need that viral exposure. This is why the vagus nerve that controls all of the function of the gut. Okay, we're talking motility, secretions, everything. That little tiny nerve That's only 10% of its functions. 90% of that vagus nerve communicates afferent or sensory. This means every time you eat something, that means you're exposed to a virus, fungus, bacteria, or a blueberry, or all the stuff that's on the organic blueberry. Okay, you need that information. That's why it's sensory, to help you adapt to the environment. Viruses are vital for our ecosystem. They're able to move genetic information between different hosts, but we still don't fully understand how this is influenced. Don't need to understand it. Hell, just vaccinate for it. Okay? One person infects three infect nine infect blah. Okay? No, let's do ignorance and fear. There is no such thing as a 100% susceptible population. Germ theory, Theobald Smith. Okay, I mean, hopefully we're living in the spirit world afterwards, because I want to meet this guy. Virulence of pathogens times number of pathogens times opening of size, over resistance of host. He understands the germ theory, that it has to do with the immune system, the resistance of hosts, the physical, chemical, emotional stress. That's the key factor. You change that denominator, everything changes. Everything changes. Lancet, the germ theory has become dogma, but it neglects many of the other factors. Dr. Fauci, this article is only 40 years old. You can look at it. Okay, I know you haven't touched a microscope or a stethoscope in a few years. Viruses and bacteria, Virchow, this is the father. I mean, he's in there looking at animalcules through his microscopes. If I could live my life over again, I would devote it to proving that germs seek their natural habitat, diseased tissue, rather than being the cause of the disease. Flies don't cause garbage. Now, do we have any data to back that up? Yeah, we got the Petri dish called the Diamond Princess. Did it affect really healthy people? No, there were 3,700 people on that boat. 7 people died, which is a tragedy. But do you want to go in there and panic the entire planet, or find out what happened to those 7 people out of 3,700? Did they have an old trauma? Were they taking medications? Did they have certain stressors? Did they fall down the staircase? Okay, this one, out of the International Journal of Vaccines and Vaccination. Who had their finger on the magic of life? Antoine Beauchamp or Louis Pasteur? And this is brilliant, because every talking head on the news, unless you're listening to the, I don't want to say alternative, because I'm not going to call myself an alternative doctor. Hell no, this is the only thing you got. What are you going to do? Take a toxic chemical that destroys your body's ability to respond to the environment? You want to take something that destroys your joint cartilage? No, let's regenerate the joints. So it is with Beauchamp. He had the profound voice of his science not been silenced. Why was his voice silenced? Because he was saying, you and you and you, everybody here is the best doctor, that your body is self-healing and self-regulating. It's like somebody preaching in front of the pulpit and saying, you know what? You don't have to use a priest. You guys have God inside of you. You're more energy than matter. You can have a direct relationship.
Amen.
Amen. Okay, so now let's try it with anatomy and physiology. You guys have millions of years, okay, except for some people who think it's only 6,000 years old. Okay, hundreds of years of evolution in your body. Your grandma, great-grandmama, great-grandpa have experienced all of these different illnesses, and it is inside of your DNA. You're designed to thrive on this planet. Your species has thrived from the desert to the Arctic, and you keep doing it. And by God, you're making a difference in the planet. Now, of course, not a good difference. We're going to go back to living in harmony. That's when we're going to change it. Okay, but if you live in an infinite expansion in a finite universe, you're going to have shit like we got now. Okay, so let's look at all science. This is going to be really tough. We have to look at 2 things. Okay, theory and observation. Okay, now the theory is, let's just take vaccines for the heck of it. We're going to inject a little bit of the pathogen, some stuff to stimulate your immune system, like say an adjuvant, maybe a couple of stabilizers. Now, since there's real tissue in there, we got to have some preservatives because we don't want mold. So this is why they're finding GMO stuff in there and antibiotics. and you got to have preservatives. This is why if you're forced, by the way, if you're forced to do a medical procedure without your informed consent, like let's say you're a nurse or something, and you have to get a vaccine for the flu, which is criminal. I mean, it takes away your bodily autonomy, but get the single dose chicken egg version, okay? Because they're utilizing monkey kidney, aborted human fetal cells, dog kidney, and caterpillar larvae, along with the chicken eggs as the growth medium for the flu shot. Okay, so just get the single dose chicken egg version. It's going to be a little bit more expensive, but at least that way you'll have less of a chance of autoimmune conditions. Okay, so the theory, so that's the theory. Now, the theory is you inject this stuff into your body. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, holy shit, that creates a Th2 or an inflammatory response. You're not going to get cellular and hormonal response. That's actually not true. We can there's certain different types of vaccines that can initiate that, but what's the overall end result? We still don't know. Okay, that's why I don't follow it that long. So, don't be so picky. Okay, so now, observational data. Now, since the vaccine is coming up, the effectiveness from the product, consumer reports, real world data, not just laboratory. That makes sense. That's why we do studies on human beings. Okay, now, how long do you think, let's just take the hepatitis B vaccine. How long should you check it before we start to inject it? You do a study, should you check it for a year, 5 years, 10 years, a few months? Well, it was done 4 days. Okay, so that's kind of a bummer. But don't worry, I think they're even bypassing that now on the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, to eliminate the animal trials, get this stuff to market. For who? The people at risk. And who are the people at risk? That small segment of the population that is already ill. This is, if you're ignorant of history, you're doomed to repeat it. Now, when they did the first smallpox vaccine, now this was a big moneymaker because instead of treating the 10% of people that were poor that got it, you could treat 100% of the people that weren't even sick. Okay, now if the vaccine failed, which is what it did a lot of the time, they made up stuff. The puncture wasn't correct, there wasn't enough stuff on it, the lymph was impure. Bummer. And there were like 3 different types of pus that they were using. Now, it's interesting because the anti-vaccine movement was brilliant back then, brilliant. And they were seeing that there were some challenges with this forced medical procedure. And I had to read this because this is incredible. The state has emerged as the guardian of the child, not the parent. The state determines what we can eat, drink, or smoke and how we did it. Now, okay, wait. I got to tell you, this is an article from 2005. Okay? You might fall down. Okay, hold on to the wall because this is a big one. Okay? The state determines what we can eat, drink, smoke, and in ways from the Victorians would have recoiled. And in public health circles, it seems altogether as it should be. The state has created a generation of semi-literate that is largely compliant. And when they do misbehave, there can be fresh new laws to ban something else, such as hooded t-shirts, sharp kitchen knives, walking out of your house without an ID card. And that was only 15 years ago. Wow. Okay, now this is the Times, 1885. They had a good comparison between Leicester and in Flintshire mold, and they were looking at vaccinated versus unvaccinated. It turns out that if you were unvaccinated, you had a death rate of about 144 per million. If you were vaccinated, you had around 3,614 per million. And of course, you know what they were saying at the time? You're all going to die, you're all going to die, you're all going to die, and that's not true. Okay, now, and I love this. Despite increasing evidence, and this was in 1896, that vaccination with cow pus did not prevent smallpox, physicians for the first time attended the healthy. 100% of their catchment areas could now be treated instead of the 10% who contracted smallpox. I mean, brilliant. I mean, the money is just incredible. Compulsory vaccination. We prefer to let compulsory vaccination die a natural death and are relieved that the general public is not curious enough to demand an inquest. Luckily, you can't even demand an inquest because they have taken away the liability. So why even do it? Okay, you can't sue the company. You can't sue the doctor. You can't sue the nurse. So there's no tort. There's no there's nothing. You just got no rights. I mean, they had 3 different choices of vaccine back then. You know, you had the cowpox, which was pure lymph. What they would do is they'd scrape the tummy of the cow and they'd put infected tissue on it and let it pus up. Then they'd scrape the pus off, put it in, you know, mix it with some preserving fluid and then scratch your arm and put it on there. Okay, now, okay, you find that gross. What do you think they're going to look at 100 years from now? Okay, you did 72 doses of 17 different vaccines in every child by the time they're 18. You saw 54% chronic illness and disease rates, and then you allowed your government to force it onto you, and you couldn't even sue them? You had to go to a vaccine court, which isn't even a court? Okay, they're going to look back. Oh, wait, how do you, oh, there it is. Semi-literate that is largely compliant. Yeah, you don't need to actually read stuff. Just watch the talking heads. And it doesn't matter the station. Every channel is saying the same thing. Okay, let's look at how your body actually works. Remember, 45% of your DNA is viral. 45% of your DNA is viral. You have 70 trillion cells. You got 4 times that amount of bacteria. And you got 4 times the bacteria number of viruses. You are a symbiote. You need these. Without the bacteria on your skin and in your gut, in your eyes, all in your hair, all around your body, you would be dead. Okay? And if you don't believe me, start putting Purell everywhere. Okay? And see the rashes you get. Okay? Don't do that. Okay? That's bad karma. Okay? I mean, for goodness sake, they should have warning labels on that stuff. So you get a fever. Why? Because your immune system increases every degree it goes up. At 104 fever, you get a 64 times faster immune system. Viruses, funguses, and bacteria die at a higher temperature. Oh my God, is that why your ancestors had sweat lodges? In Native American, in Nordic cultures, I mean everywhere, sweat lodges, except where the sun was hot. Then you'd sweat there. Okay, increased mucus production. I got a drug that will decrease the mucus in your body. No! This walls off the invader. I want mucus. Okay. I'm going to sneeze on somebody or blow it out of my nose. Okay. You know, and then I love this. Journal of Allergy and Clinical. Children who ran a fever in their first year were less likely to develop allergies later in life. Wait a second. Allergy is an abnormal recognition of a foreign protein. It's rampant in our children. Okay. And so they are getting foreign proteins that aren't tempered by digestion in their bloodstream. This is why they're responding with an allergy. And it turns out if you have a fever, that you have less of an allergic response. The fever, does it help the immune system or hurt the immune system? Okay, yeah. Okay, so fever stimulates the production of white blood cells. The brain, because what do you say? Okay. The common comment here, I'm trying to protect others. Dude, okay. Come up with love, understanding, and just look at, like it says, save the whales on their shirt. Cool, man. Find you. You're doing something good. Okay, I disagree with it, but go for it. Okay, your brain has, because when you say people, you know, allow the fever to build. And if it gets too hot, give them a tepid sponge bath. My sister, I think it was Sister Lori, not Sister Lori. Okay, my actual sister Lori, who's my big sister, is only this tall. She had, I think it was rheumatic fever, and we packed her in ice. I remember her screaming and yelling while she was in the bathtub and pouring ice on her. And I think it was like 8 or 9 years old. And I thought, boy, that sucks. You know, but that's how you reduce the fever. Now, do you want to give a Tylenol, which weakens your immune system response and can damage the liver and damage the brain? Probably not. But using a cool temperature or room temperature bath, tepid sponge bath to bring it down, it makes sense. body temperatures have to get above 108 to cause damage, and the body has self-limiting things to limit it at 106. And there's certain therapies that artificially raise the body temperature to 107 for a few hours because cancer dies at 107. Some cancers. Acetaminophen or Tylenol, linked the ingredient in Tylenol linked to chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Antibiotics, increased risk of non-Hodgkin lymphoma, along with antibiotics which are in the food, the drinks, the bread, everything. It blows holes in the intestinal tract, causing an increased inflammatory response, weakening your immune system because your gut is 80% of the immune system. These are the causes of flu. Now, this is an article out of 1997. Rhinovirus, 55%. Coronavirus, 1997, 23. That's because it's around 10 to 30% of all viruses, the corona type viruses. Have you ever heard of the flu vaccine or the flu mutating? Yeah, every year. Okay, every year it's brand new. Okay, it's novel. I mean, the antigenic shift can be a little bit bigger than normal, so it might take more susceptible people. Okay, if you're under 5. Okay, now remember, we're proving flu shots for 6 months old to every year until you die. Okay, now there's no study that shows they're effective. In fact, several studies show that they're completely ineffective, 0% effective. 0% effective if you're over 85. Now, I'm talking to my neighbor at the boat, and he has a 1930 boat, bitchin' guy, 90 years old. And I said, well, Bob, that shot is 0% effective if you're over 65, and you're just a tad over that. And this guy's cool. He never wears sunblock, normal guy, been around the world a couple of times. He says, well, John, I just do pretty much what my doctor tells me to. I said, are you going to do it? The doctor's going to shoot himself. And I said, okay, I'll do it. And so I gave him some advice, so hopefully he won't do it again. The mercury in the flu shot is dangerous. This is interesting. Now, since we're jumping over animal studies and not doing any long-term studies at all to rush this one vaccine to the market for a small group of people that are vulnerable. So we're going to vaccinate everyone. Okay, I don't want that to go like, whoa, dude, you talk so fast. Okay? Okay, so we're rushing the market, bypassing a lot of safety studies in order to get this to vaccinate everyone to protect a small group of people, okay, with no long-term studies. Well, this is interesting. At a clinical infectious disease, increased risk of non-influenza respiratory virus infections associated with receipt of the influenza vaccine. That means if you get the vaccine, it weakens your immune system response, so you're predisposed to others. Okay. How do you want to live? How do you want to live? You can choose now. Okay, whether they put you in a prison camp or shoot you or whatever, you can choose to live. I mean, look at the people that have survived. Okay, look at the Gulag Archipelago. Okay, Alexander Solzhenitsyn. Look at Man's Search for Meaning. Okay, and you're talking about people that have had horrible things, but they found, even in the depths of prison, when they've lost everything, they found out that they were free inside. That you can choose your mind, your emotion. You can choose to be happy. You can, and when I talk about stoic, you enjoy life. You enjoy food and clothes and friends and whatever you want. But if you don't have them, you're not going to miss them. That's a gift. And when you can develop that mindset, then you are bulletproof. There's nothing anyone can do to force you into this. But know that this information is going to be censored. It has to be, because it's going against the entire movement of the planet. So copy this, share this, go to everywhere you can, okay, to save it. We're opening up stuff on Extreme Health Academy. I recommend that. BitChute, we're going to probably go to Brighteon if we can get in that. But this is a simple 5-step thing that we have to do. We got to clean up the food system. That means no CAFOs. The food has to be grown in harmony with the soil and in harmony with people. Why? Because if you have shitty food, you have a shitty people. If you have good food, knowing that you utilize food in order to reproduce yourself, you have a good person then. Okay. Clean up the healthcare. That means that you don't treat symptoms with chemicals. You work, any therapy has to be in harmony with the body's processes. God, wouldn't that be something? Okay. Clean up the environment, the politics. Politics, I think we should break off into little monasteries and have little fiefdoms. The fiefdom of California is not working well for me. Infrastructure, let's just get it. But no, do not comply, do not comply, do not comply. If it limits your bodily integrity, do not comply anywhere, anywhere, anytime.